I've never seen even one moment of
Me either.
professional wrestling. Like none
Never
of it.
a moment.
Like maybe I've seen a promo as a kid playing. It's a commercial, but like none of my friends were into it. I wasn't into it. My dad, parents, like that. It just wasn't something adjacent to our life. So I never ever watched.
When someone does a standout speech, I like to watch that. I'm like Kyle. The behind the scenes is kind of interesting. If they do a particularly good job on the mic, that's interesting. The wrestling, that's the part I don't care very much about.
Not even a little. I do like the bits sometimes. If there's a comedy bit, there's a couple guys who've done this one where they're in the crowd, like dressed as themselves. I think Sting did that. Sting is the guy who has a full face mask.
Kind of kiss.
It kind of looks like the Crow. And I saw a clip one time of like the fight's going bad for the good guy, but they're near the crowd, and suddenly the guy in the crowd wearing the Sting mask takes it off to reveal the real Sting mask and starts beating the bad guy's ass. So like stuff like that is funny. Sting used to like zip line in like out of nowhere. I remember seeing that a couple times. And then Hulk Hogan, man, how can you not, when he would come out and to fight like the Iranian Sheik, to I am a true American.
I only know that.
That's Hulk Hogan's song. Okay. That's his music, and he'd be waving a full-sized American flag as he came out, and it was like the Iranian, the Sheik is in there, and he's fake praying to Allah, and he's talking about all this crazy shit about how Iran is going to destroy America. This is during the 80s. This is Jimmy Carter's era. Where we hate Iran. They're our number one enemy. All that shit had happened with the embassy. The rescue had gone bad. They held our people hostage for well over a year. We hated Iran. So like having the Iron Sheik out. That's who it was. The Iron Sheik. Iron Sheik was an Iranian wrestling champion. Like they're like Olympic wrestling, and he had this crazy. He used not kettlebells. It's they look like maces. Those weighted maces. He had this whole workout thing with those that was crazy. And he was just huge. So that stuff I like. I like the characters, but I couldn't give a shit less about the wrestling.
I forgot I have seen one clip of professional wrestling, and it's of the Shockmaster. Zach, show this picture. And if that's what professional wrestling is, then I've missed out enormously because it's hilarious. I saw the O&A clip of them making fun of it. So show this picture first, Zach. This is the Shockmaster. Now, you can't tell it's 1993 quality, but that's a guy in a vest, shirtless, in a very yellow backdrop with a silver spray painted stormtrooper helmet. Not a similar helmet, not a design based on that, a Spirit Halloween spray painted silver mask, stormtrooper mask. And this guy was supposed to apparently be like the next big thing in WWE at the time, and he burst through a wall to introduce himself. And
that is
if you can show this picture, it's definitely not Stone Cold. This guy's name is Eric Bischoff, is that right? Yeah, so this is his entrance. He was supposed to burst through the wall, but there was a 2x4 that was holding the wall together. And so all of the other wrestlers are like, you won't be as confident when you meet our new ally. He is the Shockmaster. And then they all look over at this, and he bursts through, immediately falls flat on his face. The helmet falls off, and he has to scramble for the helmet and put it back on. And then he stands up and starts doing like the pre-recorded lines where they're like, "You are not ready for the Shockmaster," and everybody was laughing at him. And
they're not. You're right; they are pre-recorded because his voice was not a cool voice. So they have someone else in the back with a microphone, but the Shockmaster. The embodiment of the Shockmaster is trying to point and be like, "You are in big trouble now because the Shockmaster has arrived." But it's not matching up to the voice. It's like he's like trying to catch up sometimes with his gesturing because it's not him talking. It was one of the most pathetic moments.
Nah, that's funny. They should do more of that.
Like the fuck ups are funny. It used to be so raunchy. Like that's the crazy, but like it used to be so much tits and ass, like an impossible amount of tits and ass. and crazy like dirty storylines. Like there's one of the ones they cover in that Netflix documentary. Vince McMahon has this beautiful girl out there, and she's like, please, I'm so sorry. Prove it. Get on your knees and crawl and bark like a dog. And she's out there all around. And she's doing it.
Can we watch this?
The Shockmaster?
This 15-second Shockmaster clip?
You try it. See if it gets.
I think we'll be fine. They got enough legal problems on their hands these days. They won't bother us.
Who does?
I don't even think this is not WWE. This is
I thought you meant Google.
This is WCW. It's on YouTube. Make sure volume is on.
Hold on. He's fat.
He is.
You thought that was Stone Cold? Come on.
Yeah, our fact checker said that was Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Stone Cold. No, that's Stone Cold Creamery, Steve Austin.
Stone Cold Creamery.
What the fuck?
That's good.
Oh, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, that clip makes me laugh even more because even before he trips, they go, "He is the Shock Master," and they're intense wrestling voices. And one of the announcers goes, "All right," like just as he's oh man, and wrestling, just a world I have no adjacency.
Oh, here's a fucking funny one. Who was the guy who like killed himself and then offed his family too?
Oh, that was Chris Benoit.
So when Chris Benoit died, they didn't release all the details right away. They just said Chris is dead or something, like, or an accident. Chris and his family are gone, and so they're having Chris Benoit Memorial Night at like the wrestling show, and everybody's saying all these nice things about Chris, and they're doing like they're playing his music and shit. and they're interviewing Vince McMahon. He's like, then it came out, and we found out, what had happened. A little awkward. It's like, fuck. Yeah, he smothered the child to death. I think 7 years old. If I remember right, 9. And then I don't remember how he killed his wife. But then he hung himself. That was rough. That was rough. They always blame steroids, and you don't know what he was on. Maybe he was on something crazy, but he was also had so much brain damage, so much CTE that's got to be like a factor. Because a lot of people do steroids. They don't smother their 7-year-old child and murder their wife and all that crazy evil shit.
Dude, he bound his. I'm just reading the death portion of his wiki. He apparently bound his wife before killing her, and he drugged his son with Xanax before strangling him, and then hanged himself on a lat pull-down machine. I knew that factoid. Over a 3-day period, though. So, it wasn't all at once.
Wait, he drugged his son with Xanax? That's not like a knockout. Does he just get like less worried?
You give a 7-year. But the dosage for a 7-year-old might not be 3 or 4 Xanax, which is probably what he probably gave. You know what I mean? He's trying to like do that thing when they put a dog down and give him that first shot to like. Let him rest, and then the second one to stop his heart. I feel like that's what was going on.
His wife had Xanax, hydrocodone, and hydromorphone.
Yeah. Zach's exactly right. His finishing move, everybody's got like these signature moves that have names and stuff. He would stand up in the corner, up on the turnbuckle, and he would do a head first dive into the opponent. He would hit them with his skull, like he would he would dive into them with his head. And the move would always go, not always, but often go, the person moves at the last second. And so he would just headbutt the floor. That happened to him twice a week for years.
I feel like it was fatal, just in a really roundabout way.
Yeah. So Chris family too.
Chris Benoit, they analyzed his brain after death, and West Virginia University said that it was so severely damaged, it looked like an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient. He had advanced dementia at 40 from getting punched and kicked and flipped on the head for however many. I'm guessing at age 40, you've got 20 years of wrestling experience under your belt, probably. So 20 years of that shit.
It's also about how they used to go. They used to go like 45 weekends a year, and like they would constantly be on the road. That's why you see so many couples within the organization, because they were traveling so much. You kind of needed your wife to be a part of the show. It's almost like a carnival because they travel every week, and they put on that show every night where he's smashing his skull. And yeah, it's people who don't believe in CTE are they're right there with the flat earthers. That's crazy. Like,
how could you not believe in that?
Is there anyone who doesn't believe in CTE?
Like, how could it not harm you?
The owners of sports organizations.
Yeah, but they say that like for liability reasons. They know what the deal is.
Yeah, we've seen no link. We've seen no linkage at all. You know, some people get CTE. Who knows? They would rub Ben Gay in the other guy's eyes. Stone Cold was like, "I'm blind this whole match here. If you're watching, I didn't see it. I can't see. Look at my eyes." Like, he blinded me right away at the beginning.
Dude, if I were Vince McMahon, that would piss me off. I'd be like, "What the fuck? You're my property. You're WWE property, and you're putting sand into the eyes of my other property."
Well, I mean, I think he was busy with those ladies. I think he ran through some of the girl. Again, it used to be so raunchy, just buttholes and titties everywhere with these like bodacious, like gorgeous women, and
really?
he was just it like crazy, like you'd be shocked it was on television, and he was having sex with these women as part of their contracts. Like, that was like part of the deal, and then he'd also write it into the script that they were having an affair to kind of blur the lines between reality and the fiction that's on stage. That way, if somebody said, "Oh yeah, Vince was inappropriate with me," they're like, "Well, that was like the movie you were doing." That'd be like someone saying that their co-star in a movie was inappropriate with them. It's like, well, yeah, he rapes you in the movie. I know that. It's a really rough scene to watch, actually. No. Also in real life. Wait, are you sure you weren't rehearsing and you misunderstood what was happening? You know, there's this weird blurred line, and he was clearly doing that on purpose. Vince McMahon's an evil person.
I don't know anything about him.
You got to watch the documentary. It's great. It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
Is Hugh Hefner an evil person?
Is who?
Hugh Hefner. Because he was banging those models too. They lived at the Playboy Mansion.
I don't think of Hugh Hefner as an evil person. It's from what I've heard, he's definitely like a dirty guy, but it seems like the deal was your job was to be his girlfriend. It was almost like he had one of those sugar daddy relationships, but professionally. Like, he was a professional sugar daddy. I've heard some of those women. There was a reality show, for those who don't know, on MTV back in the day, where it was just Hefner and his girls. He had 3 girlfriends. They were all these bleach blonde, like, dummies with big titties. And it was kind of funny. It was like, old Hef's got these 3, and like, they're clearly part of that bit and part of that idea and going along with it. So I have a hard time, getting on their side about that. Whereas these ladies that were working for Vince, there was one lady that he hired, then sexually sexually assaulted. She quits the company and sues him for millions of dollars. He settles, rehires her, and then does the story where his daughter is like, "How can you hire her? She sued us for millions of dollars." That's her. She's barking like a dog. He's forcing her to. It's bizarre. I really enjoyed that documentary. I didn't know all that shit. I watched wrestling with my grandpa when I was like 4 or 5, and I don't remember watching any wrestling. I remember watching them backstage on the microphones being in masks, and I thought that was neat. It was like, oh, there's a ninja. I remember liking Sting because he was like a ninja man or some shit. I don't know. I didn't know what they were even fucking doing. But as I grew up and I immediately found out it was fake. That's the other thing. When John Stossel and some of those reporters started going and like exposing professional wrestling as being fake, there's that one great clip. The wrestler, the guy's like, a lot of people saying this is fake. What do you say to that? And it's this big country boy. He's like, fake. And he smacks him so hard in the ear, open hand slap, that he like causes permanent hearing damage and almost puts the guy on the ground. And the guy stands back up and he gives him another, I think a left this time. Is that fake? Does that feel fake? And the guy's running from him down the hallway now. And it's a crowded, you know those back hallways in sports arenas. It's one of those it's crowded and everybody's watching. And they talked about that in the documentary, and they were like, Vince had said, somebody needs to do something about this guy. But that's all he said. He didn't say somebody should do this, somebody should do that, you should do this, you should do that. He's like, somebody ought to do something.
He was a real skinny guy with dark hair, right?
The interviewer was the reporter. Yeah. The guy that slapped him, I remember having a blonde curly mullet and looking like he was 240 pounds of muscle.
Yeah, he was a giant guy. He like
so hard.
He slapped him so hard he like made him do that like ragdoll physics almost. Where he just took him off his feet with a slap. I didn't know it caused permanent hearing loss. That sucks.
Permanent hearing loss. And then I can't think of the actor's name, but he's one of the actors from Law and Order. He was interviewing Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. Mr. T was like working with the wrestling at the time. They were doing a whole WrestleMania bit. And I think maybe he had said some stuff about wrestling being fake. And Hogan's like, let me show you a hold. And he puts him in a guillotine, but he calls it like a front headlock or something. And he guillotines that guy unconscious. Like it's his show, but he makes the host unconscious in front of the audience, and then instead of lightly setting him down, he full lets go, like drops him, and the guy does this flick backwards kind of thing where the back of his head hits the floor and immediately starts like bleeding so heavily it's dripping down his suit jacket, and the guy and then Hogan's like slapping him in the face, like, "Come on, buddy. Come on now, wake up now." And the guy comes to and plays it off real well. He's like, and we'll be right back with
wait, so Hulk Hogan did the choke out?
Choked him out, and then
that's the one I was thinking of. I have it wrong.
It's pretty fucked. But although
the choke reporter. Okay, let's see this.
Going in there and like trying to expose their business as being fake,
I've seen this clip.
Always seems super shitty to me because it's like, just play along, man. Just play along. It's just fun. It's like Santa Claus. Like if somebody was doing that with Santa, you'd really roll your eyes. I feel like it's the same thing with pro wrestling. Clearly, it's not exactly real, but it's not exactly fake either. Like they're really getting hurt and doing.
This is unbelievably dangerous what he did to this guy.
Yeah, Richard Belzer. That's who it is. Law and Order actor.
Yeah, Zach, can you show that picture?
Dude, Richard Belzer, a fucking consummate professional.
He really was very confused when he woke up. He like did. If you've ever been choked out, it's like everyone has a memory of recent time and you don't. I mean, for me, it's super embarrassing.
They look like different species.
But when he came out, it was within 3 seconds of Hulk standing him up that he did like we'll be back after this. And so like to have that,
he even knew how much he was bleeding on the back of his head at the time.
And because it's related to pro wrestling, he was having a hard time getting people to believe him after the fact. They thought it was some pro wrestling stunt, but he's been assaulted by a pro wrestler. That's, again, sort of that Vince McMahon thing where you're blending reality with the show that they put on. And I think he was on Oprah, maybe, something like that. And he was like, that was real. And I don't want to gross you people out, but like, feel here. Can you zoom in? And he shows the stitches in his skull. And it's like, fuck, that dude opened him up. Yeah, Hulk Hogan was shitty for doing that.
Holy cow, although, again, this is the big ear guy you were talking about. He looks so different.
Who? Richard Belzer?
Richard Belzer.
Yeah, Richard Belzer sued for $5 million, but they settled for an undisclosed amount.
R.I.P. to Richard Belzer. I didn't know he was dead.
Oh, I didn't either. Would have been pretty
year.
Old. Yeah, wrestling business seems super skeezy, super sketchy. Lots of sexual assault and taking advantage of women and ripping people off, and then like letting them get away with all the drug use that made so many of them die. There's this part in the documentary where they show how many wrestlers died before 40. And I was like, those guys are dead? Like, I remember their names. They were famous enough that you'd like know their name. But so many of them died before 40.